Hello, how are you?
Hi, Dr. Nadine. Good.
I'm so happy to have here today with us Dr. Soha Moussa. Dr. Moussa is the head of monitoring and evaluation at the World Food Program in Lebanon. She has a PhD in food policy and applied nutrition from Tufts University in Boston. And she has been working with the World Food Program for more than 10 years in various capacities, assessments, program management, technical support, and this is nationally and internationally. Her interests and technical expertise are mainly in emergency nutrition, food security programming, program monitoring and evaluation, as well as capacity development. It's an honor to be able to interview you for this course. Thank you for taking some time off of your very busy schedule to discuss a bit food security and food insecurity with us.
Thank you, Dr. Nadine. Thank you for having me, to you and to your class. I'm looking forward to having a good conversation. Nothing replaces in-class learning, but I think this is as good as we can get. And yes, feel free to ask me anything.
Thank you so much. So first of all, Dr. Moussa, could you define for us hunger and food insecurity, and are they actually the same?
Okay. So food insecurity, the way we know it and the way it's, I think your students also are familiar with, is, so we start with food security. So food security, you are food secure if you have access at any time to sufficient food in good quantities and quality to sustain a healthy and active life. If you don't have this, then we say that you are food insecure. If you are food insecure for long periods of time, if you are insecure because you don't have, you're food secure now, but you don't have the reassurance that you will get the food that you need tomorrow or after the rain, after the drought, then you fall into this food insecurity. And food insecurity can have, like, it's a scale, it's a range. So it can be mild, moderate, it can be severe, it can happen seasonally. So it's a wide definition for food insecurity. Now, hunger, on the other hand, and I think you or your students as well, we've all experienced hunger at one point, right? If we're late for lunch, or if we are busy and forget about eating and we say, oh, I'm hungry. We all use the term very loosely and very usually in our daily life. So the hunger, when do I say I'm hungry? It's a physiological manifestation. It's when I feel something in my stomach saying I'm hungry. So it's that physiological or physical discomfort that is hunger. Now, if it happens more than because I haven't ate lunch, so if it happens because of food insecurity, then it's hunger. Mm-hmm. So that's hunger as we know it, and that's hunger in a population. In between hunger and food insecurity, so when I'm food insecure for long periods of time, for repetitive periods of time, when I oscillate between mild and moderate food insecurity, the manifestation, the physiological manifestation can be malnutrition. Okay, so I have hunger, malnutrition, and food insecurity, and they are on the same continuum. So it's like these three terms that happen either together or one in isolation, depending, not in isolation, one after the other, or precipitated by the other, but they all happen together, they're all present together, and they're all due to almost the same factors that precipitate them. So usually this is the relation. So you cannot say, I have hunger in this population without having food insecurity. I can't say I have food insecurity and that's it, without thinking that this might transform into malnutrition in all its forms, whether it's silent malnutrition, which is micronutrient deficiencies, or visible malnutrition, which is kwashiorkor and marasmus.
Thank you. So would it be possible, for example, for someone not to feel hungry because they're getting enough food in terms of quantity, but still qualify as food insecure because in terms of nutrients, they're not getting a complete diet?
Of course. Of course. So people, when they feel food insecurity, when they feel this insecurity, how do they compensate? You start, and this is what we call technically coping strategies. Okay, so this is how people cope. You reduce the quality of the food you eat. So if you're used to having fresh fruits and vegetables of certain kind, you start having a different kind that's also vegetables and fruits, but not the ones that you're used to. If you are, for example, eating 3 times per day, you skip one meal. So you say, okay, without breakfast, or okay, I sleep without dinner, or I skip lunch and make more food available. So you start reducing this quality and quantity of food that we eat. And of course, we know what are the foods that make you feel full, fast. These are the energy-dense foods, right? So it's the starches, it's the fried foods. So you start eating more of these, and this is why, between parentheses, we find a lot of obesity also in food insecure environments. And you switch your whole diet and your whole way of dealing with food and putting food on the table.
Wow, that's so interesting. Thank you. So what do you think? How can we reduce food insecurity in a sustainable way over here in Lebanon? And of course, how is it being done at the global level? And how do you think that it could be improved here in Lebanon? Of course, many other things need to be improved so that food security is improved. But what's your take on it? What do you think are the best initiatives, interventions that can be done, and especially that can really be sustainable rather than being really dependent on the inflation, on the dollar rate?
Okay. So, if you want to get into answers, and I can tell you there are the short term and the medium term and the longer term, but I'll spare you that conversation and say, okay, if we go back to the definition, so food security is dependent on access and availability. And shocks, so predictability of shocks. So knowing that, you will have a drought or you will have rain, and this is becoming increasingly difficult in the climate of global climate change environment. So access and availability. So I need to have availability in terms of agriculture production or in terms of what I import into the country. And I need to have people accessing it, so with enough economic power to go to the market and buy whatever food they want. And to be able to improve food security, I need to improve that. I need to improve the agriculture production. So if I start from the bottom line, I need to improve agriculture production so that I have enough food for everyone in Lebanon at the table. And I need to complement with whatever I cannot have here, complemented by imports and food imports. And this is how the global markets function and the global markets work. Again, this is something that we say, agriculture has not been a priority. I don't mean necessarily that the Ministry of Agriculture needs to promote the cultivation of certain crops, etc., which is a big part, but also having these اتفاقات تجارية, like these trade agreements with other countries, they could also help export from Lebanon and import what is needed. And we are looking forward to seeing more activity around this soon. I don't know when it will happen, but there are some initiatives, like local initiatives, that are doing it. So you need to improve these to be able to improve food security. Which brings us to, how do I measure food insecurity and food security, and where is Lebanon on this measurement scale? As you know, and as your students know, and as probably why we are in this course, we have SDG, right? The Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is ending hunger. And many of the indicators for ending hunger are related. There are the ones related to food security, and there are the ones related to malnutrition as well. In food security, there are two main ways to measure food insecurity, and these are put forward by the FAO, and they are internationally agreed, and all countries follow the same, so that SDGs can actually compare
and be measured
among countries when we measure the same thing. So you have like the traditional way of measuring food security was what we call, or what FAO calls, undernourishment. and not undernutrition at the individual level, but undernourishment at the population level or at the country level. And this is done usually through looking at the books, at the import, export, whatever, however, how many calories are available per person in that particular country. And that is a measure of hunger. So the more calories you have, the less prone you are to hunger. And at the population, the food security at population level, and this is the SDG 2 indicator, is the food insecurity, FIES, food insecurity something scale.
Okay.
Okay. So the FIES measures the food insecurity at the population level, which means it looks at direct consumption. So it's by direct interviews. It doesn't look at the books. It goes and interviews people and what people consume in terms of food groups, how they consume them, how frequently, what they do in terms of coping strategies, and what they do in terms of their income. And then it classifies this population on a scale from mild, food secure, mild, moderate, severely food insecure. And that's the SDG 2 indicator that all countries are expected to measure. There is an SDG group that works in Lebanon. It's taken up at the Office of the Prime Minister's level. So it's at the Office of the Prime Minister that is supposed to track these SDGs and the progress of Lebanon towards the SDGs. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the data before I came to this meeting, and I don't think it exists. But if it does exist, if you're able to find it,
that would be especially the second indicator. It really gives much more information rather than the calories per person, and we know this can be very misleading, especially if there's a large gap.
The undernourishment is still used, but less and less so, because it doesn't tell you the population, it doesn't tell you the geographic areas, and it doesn't tell you, it gives just a snapshot. Very high, global vision of whatever the food situation is in this country. But it doesn't look at the security end of that food situation, which is what the populations, who are they, where are they, which would actually inform interventions to address these, food insecurity.
To tailor, to individualize, to look at
because
quality.
You can have in a country like Lebanon where you have a lot of diversity, and we pride ourselves with the diversity that we have. We also have this diversity in the geographic and climate in Lebanon between rural, urban, semi-urban, and we're not all the same. So it helps you tailor and see who are the food insecure, where are they, how can we address their needs better, and plan accordingly. And then comes the whole conversation on policy, on the planning in the short, medium, and longer term to overcome food insecurity. But in a country like Lebanon, where we are blessed with good climate, with good agricultural land, with water to some extent, if we know how to use it, we shouldn't be facing any food insecurity. Now, I gave you the number of 22% food insecure in Lebanon, and this is a very conservative estimate. There are estimates of the World Bank, not the World Bank, the ESCWA has put 50%. But these are extrapolations, so they look. So it hasn't been a direct food insecurity survey
that is representative of all the country, etc.
So these are extrapolations, and there are, with the economic